Hi, so I just found an app on the Mac App Store called BiggerPicture, and it's meant to be an artificial intelligence image enhancer. And the general idea is that you upload your compressed, low resolution photos from your phone or whatever. I don't know what this phone looks like, but let's have a look at this. Some old phone with a not very good camera, I guess. I don't know what that looks like. Oh, yeah, low resolution. Was that the screen? That's the screen. Okay, so some low resolution camera phone. Does this even have a camera? Oh, yes, rear camera. VGA quality. Um, and it makes it better. And they have some before and after pictures which look suspiciously like they've got the original picture and they've just blurred it a little bit because they look exactly the same, but a little bit of blurring, and they've got these sample images where it's crazy high resolution, and blah, 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 and they use artificial intelligence to imagine the missing pixels. So interpolation is a thing to change the size of images, and artificial intelligence is a real thing, and you can use artificial intelligence to change the size of images. I've done a little bit of this myself. It didn't work very well. It's quite hard to do. The good way to do it is with something called a Generative Adversarial Network, and there are some excellent results that people have got. I might put some links in the description about this. But let's see what their program does. So this is the original image I'm using. Not the most interesting of images, but it's got quite a lot of detail. This is a bust of Nefertiti. And if you zoom in, I don't know what resolution the picture is, 30 something megapixels, and so it's quite high. Quite a lot of detail, sharp image, contrast, whatever, no image artifacting, a little bit of noise in the background. And I reduced the size of this image to 500 pixels, I think it was. And do I have the, no, I closed it anyway, to 500 pixels, and then I applied it, and then I used this. Oh yes, it was 512 by 737, and the original image, if I just get the numbers up here, image size was 4,500 by 6,500. So quite a big step down. That's what, 13 times. Oh, I can't do math. Anyway, something like that, smaller. And then in here, I then made it up to this size. It didn't let me put in the actual numbers I wanted to make it the same as the original, but it doesn't matter. And then you can choose between artwork and photo. I think they mean like vector art pictures. I'm not really sure though. And they have this noise reduction scale. I initially tried it on high. Oh, so when I saved the image, I made the image smaller, and then I also saved it as in Photoshop. It's a level 2 JPEG, so it has a lot of image artifacts. I'll show you that in a moment. But anyway, I tried it with the low noise reduction and also with the high noise reduction. And there's also medium and very high and none, I guess, whatever it's called, none, minus. Yeah, so I tried it here and here. It doesn't show you what it's meant to look like or give you any scale about that, so I don't know. And then to get this to work, you can just download it. It's a free app, but then you have to pay for it to not give a watermark on it. And then you just click save, and then it asks if you want to buy the app, and you can save the specimen. Anyway, that's fine. It takes a little while. It takes like a minute or so to run on my computer. So let's first. So this is the original image, and I've taken the image that I made smaller, and I've just made it bigger in Photoshop. I've used bicubic interpolation, which is the default in Photoshop, and all of the images they've been made. You know, there are a few pixels on the edge where the aspect ratio changed, so I just made that the right size. So this is just the downsampled image. So if I do that again, you can see lose the detail. The bicubic interpolation has done a little bit of like edge enhancement things here. Well, you just know the way it works. And so you've got this backline around here, but bearing in mind it was 512 pixels across, I don't think that's that bad. Now, maybe I should put these in a different order, but this is with the compression artifacts. So it was I saved it as a JPEG with a very low, very high compression ratio. So the image it takes up a small file size. So it's got these compression artifacts, and if we have a look between low resolution. This is low resolution and highly compressed, and this is just low resolution. So it's meant to, yeah, their system is meant to deal with this, a lot of posterization and things. So anyway, let's see what it does. If we put these at the bottom, then we can compare. Okay, so this is with the denoising. I think it's made it, so this is with low denoising, the upscaling low denoising. And as you see, it's got this specimen thing. If we have a look at the whole image, I don't really know what to make of this. It is, it looks clearly, oh, I didn't quite get them aligned, but anyway, it looks sharper and more contrasty, I would say. If we look at these details here, in this area, these areas look far sharper. So, but obviously this hasn't removed any of these blocky things, but we didn't ask it to, we only put it on low denoising. It did increase it in the resolution, you know, in terms of the number of pixels, and it made it, I think, a little bit sharper. I think you can say there's a little bit of better jawline definition. Let's have a look at it on denoised high. So I think they did a pretty good job of getting rid of the image artifacting. I mean, you can still clearly see it. Maybe I should put it on very high, I don't know. But it's done a moderately good job of doing that. It hasn't made the picture, let's just have a look. We'll put the, this is the original one, and so obviously the computer doesn't know what the original one looked like. We only gave it this the compressed small image. I think they are not being very honest about how good the system is. Maybe I gave it in a particularly poor example, but their testimonials seem to suggest that it was quite good. Perhaps it works better without noise. Yeah, I think that it doesn't really do what it says it does. I'm not saying that, none of these technologies work, or that maybe it works better in other conditions, but in my little first round of a test image, I don't really think that it necessarily works. Let's have a look at something. So this is the compressed image, and Photoshop has a way of noise. Oh no, there's a way of getting rid of the sharpen and then smart sharpen. Does this have the one where you can get rid of the oh no, is it denoise? There's a reduce noise. There we go. Noise, reduce noise. Now this is meant to be able to remove JPEG artifacts. I don't know, where are we in the image? I don't normally use JPEGs for photos, so I don't really know much about JPEG denoising. Let's have a look here. And I think the advanced bit allows us to do it for different color channels, which is useful because the different color channels have different amount of noise. It's quite interesting. So it seems that we can denoise this a little bit. I don't know how effective this is looking. I don't know if the removing JPEG artifacts is really doing anything. Anyway, if we strength is on full, so let's have a look at that and then look at the before and after and see how well that is done at denoising. We've got these details here, the blocky artifacts. So we're just going original and then denoised. I think their way of denoising it, the BiggerPicture's way of denoising it, is better than the one that they have in Photoshop, although you can do other things in Photoshop. I mean, just the clicking the simple button to denoise it is not very effective. So it depends what you want it for. I think I increased the size by more than a factor of 8, and decreased it and increased it. So in terms of the number of pixels, it's like a 64 times change. So obviously that's not really going to be the ideal case, but bearing in mind that testimonials are saying things like that, and also they have a slider on here. Oh, undo. No, I don't want to do that. Is there no way to go back? That's annoying. In their multiple slider, they have, I don't know why you want to change it by 1, but okay. It seems to suggest that 8 is an amount that you might want to do it by. It's on their slider. So it seems that this is somewhat within the amount that they would expect it to be used for. And also, if you had a third of a megapixel image, VGA 480 by 640, as they said on that phone in one of their testimonials that they put on their website, then to get it to be a usable size, I mean, for instance, this is on this laptop, the screen resolution is it's 280, 2880 by 1800. So just having a vague look between that and 640 by 480. What is that difference? So that's 288 by 640, 4.5, and 1800 divided 480. So the aspect ratio, you'd lose the aspect ratio, but it's something like a 4 times difference. We did an 8 times difference. So the idea of getting, the idea of taking a picture on your 15-year-old smartphone and then expecting to be able to use it as the background for your high resolution screen is, I don't think, very realistic. I don't think you're going to get, if I just put it back to the actual example, where is it? I don't know if I'd want to, oh, it's the light denoise, let's look at the heavy duties. I don't know if I'd want to look at this for any particular period of time. I think that would not be very enjoyable. Maybe if the original image was less noisy, but okay. Cool, well, that was my opinion on that. I don't know if you guys have seen this at BiggerPicture. Maybe I'll have a look at it in some more detail and see where it works and where it doesn't work. Perhaps it's just the noise bit that doesn't work very well, but it seemed to advertise that, so I thought I'd put it in a bad case scenario. Just for completeness, I thought I would include how the system deals without the JPEG compression noise. So I saved another downscaled image to the same resolution as the previous ones we were looking at, which was 512 by 727 pixels. But this time I saved it at the highest JPEG quality setting, so setting 10 in Photoshop. Or 12, or whatever the number is. But anyway, so there's no visible JPEG noise in it, and I ran it through the BiggerPicture app again. Here it is, the small and compressed one, same size and upscaled to the same amount. Again with photo selected, and with this time the noise slider set to none. And again, it took a little while to solve it, or to work out what it was trying to do. And here is the output. So I think first of all, this does look pretty good. It looks. This is about as good as how I expected it to look, to be honest. So I think the one it's going to be competing with, really, if I'm being honest, is the bicubic uncompressed one, the one where I just made the image smaller and made it bigger again in Photoshop. If the BiggerPicture thing can beat the regular Photoshop upscaling, downscaling thing, then I think this is a success, because the Photoshop one isn't a particularly, it's the same implementation that everything uses. Maybe the Photoshop one is a little bit different, but Microsoft Word also can make pictures bigger and smaller, so it's not very unusual, and they're all pretty good. So firstly, if we have a look at this compared to the original, we can see that it has not magically recovered the original image. It has made it bigger. I have managed to not completely perfectly align them, but around the eyes it seems to have done something, I think, a little bit different. It seems to have smoothed them, but also done, I don't know if it's done some enhancement around the eyes differently to how you might expect it to, but it seems that there's that black line there is quite a harsh line. Maybe it's doing something clever with outlines. I'm not sure. If we compare this now to the bicubic uncompressed, this is the regular bicubic interpolation, and I think it is the bigger picture upscale one is noticeably better. These areas are smoother than the upscale thing. These patches are very smooth. I don't know if I like this or not, but it looks like these kind of areas are they look very smooth with these quite nice borders, sharp borders, as opposed to these kind of fuzzy bits which you would expect. And in the original, they're pretty sharp. So here's the thing we can do in Photoshop. We can load the bicubic uncompressed thing, and then we can put a difference mask, so it just takes them away from one another. And here, so in areas where they're very different, the image will be brighter, and areas where they're very similar, it will be black. So here, there's a little bit of noise or texture or whatever you want to call it, and there's almost no detail, but here it's a little bit different. And in this one, if we do the same thing, we could say no to different. Also, it's possible that these are not perfectly aligned. So if I think the images are slightly different aspect ratios, because I think when I made them smaller and then made them bigger again, they've been slightly stretched or whatever. So if we align these areas around the nose, it looks pretty good. These areas, if we align just this area, then it gets pretty small. This also looks small. Obviously, there's these little bits of fine detail that the upscale one, the computer doesn't have access to the information. It can't know what that point is going to look like. In this, it's very, very sharp, and this it's not so sharp. I think their method, if we just compare them, does a pretty good job. I think if you spent a long time in Photoshop and you wanted to piece together something that looked like this, and maybe you had some similar images from somewhere else in the exhibition or something like that, you could probably, given some time, you could make a composited image which was better than this. But bearing in mind this takes a minute and you just click it and it works. This is pretty cool. The original image does have a little bit of noise. It was in a dark museum, so I don't know how much of an effect that had. Obviously, we made it much smaller and much larger again. And this is with quite an exaggerated example. I mean, we made it more than 8 times smaller, and then, again, more than 8 times larger again. And I think, in the case where there is... Oh, can we go back to... Oh, wrong image. In the case where we are comparing it to the upscale one, which is a reasonable approximation, I think, to your typical case scenario, it is noticeably better. I mean, if we look just at this this little contour area, so this is the bicubic thing. It blurs it. I mean, it doesn't blur it. It is blurred, and it just expresses that. And in the original, it's a very fine line, and this is much closer to that, and the bicubic is not as good. Obviously, they're both quite smooth. But I think they are pretty good. I wouldn't necessarily want to look for a long time at images that were upscaled in this way, but if it is the only option you have, this seems to be quite a fun collab. I don't think it works very well with very highly compressed images at all. So I would say, it works in 2 different ways. It seems to be quite good at suppressing the JPEG noise. which is not very hard to get rid of to some degree, and it's also quite good at upscaling images. I don't think it does both of them very well at the same time, which is fine. I don't think it is as good as they alluded to on the website, but I think this is pretty cool. Well done them. They seem to have made a clever little app. Just while editing this video, I thought I'd see how much it costs to buy the images, and here's a screenshot of when you click buy, and it's almost £30. I don't think it's worth that if that's for each picture. I tried it on 2 times and 8 times, and it gives you the same price for both. It doesn't make it particularly clear if you buy the app and then you can do it as many times as you want, or if you have to pay per image. I think either is a bit expensive. I think paying £30 for a computer to upscale your image is extortionate. So I will not try and find out if it is good value.